Well, I work in child and youth care. I'm currently a program supervisor at a treatment facility for young people. I've been in the field for 16-ish years. I got a lot of experience working in treatment facilities, leadership roles, small options group homes for kids, adults with special needs, different mental health needs. Yeah, I've been doing that for 16 years. After I got out of school, I graduated with Sandy, of course. But my story really started on November 6, 1981, when I was born into a family of two parents who were both low functioning, uneducated, and were themselves caught into cycles of abuse, neglect, and trauma.
What do you mean when you say low functioning?
My parents were low functioning. They both have mental health needs, and my mom had very special needs, especially later on. They progressed, but yeah, they weren't the best parents. Physically abused, neglected, rigmarole. I was apprehended for my family when I was 5. Due to my father throwing me on the floor, breaking my leg. I was the kid we learned about in school. So I was the kid who went to school hungry and had to steal lunches to eat. I was the kid who went to school dirty because I didn't shower or bathe at home, and parents didn't help me either.
Were you an only child?
No. So when I was 2.5, my mom gave birth to my little brother, and we kind of grew up together. It was off and on when I started to go into foster care. But he, as I reflect on everything now, he was like the favorited child, and I was like the outcast. I was the one who always got in trouble. I was the one who always got beat. He would try to set me up just so I would get beat. And that's how life went for a long time.
So did he go into foster homes at all?
He did, but not until super later on in life, when my mother's mental health severely declined. I think he was 12 or 13.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So growing up that way, at that time, did you know that this was an extraordinary case, that how you were living? Did you go to other people's houses and go, what the hell? You people are freaks?
No, but I mean, when you're a kid growing up in an environment like this is all you know, right? You're built to think that life is just supposed to be this way. So I thought, I get beat as a kid. Everybody else does too. I don't have a lot of food in the house. That must be the same life it is for everyone else too. Yeah.
What age did you realize this is not how most people live?
It took me a long time. It was because of the trauma that I endured. How do I explain it? I aged cognitively different. I don't know how to explain it. If you started thinking about future and career and wife at the age of 23, my growth was stunted. Mm-hmm. I didn't think about that stuff until I was 28 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
So did your parents ever get charged with anything, or?
I don't know. Everything that happens with parents when you're a kid happens behind the scenes, and rightfully should. I mean, a 5 or 6-year-old kid doesn't need to really be involved with any of that stuff.
But you never had to go to court and testify or anything like that?
Honestly, Todd, I can't remember. There's a lot I don't remember because, I mean, as you yourself know, with trauma, it builds walls to protect the human brain from everything, right, from the evils. And my brain built some thick walls.
And you've never tried to tear some of them down?
I did.
Okay. But some of them stayed up and you're like, that's fine. Those ones can stay up.
I mean, it depends.
Okay.
By the time I aged out of care when I was 19, I was in 60 placements.
Whoa. Good Lord. All in Halifax or Halifax area?
All around the Halifax area and Nova Scotia. I actually used Google Maps one time to make a map of all my different moves and placements. It's crazy because you can create your own map and put pins in it. And yeah, it's pretty wild.
Wow. So like
Yeah,
you'd change schools and everything.
all the time. So, and when a kid does that, even in foster care, like today, you don't gain attachment or connection to anybody. You're constantly moving. I constantly moved all the time. By the time I was first apprehended when I was 5, I would like go to a foster home for a few months and then back home because I'm just assuming that Child and Family Services wanted to see if it would work out again. And then it failed and then would put me back in another home. And that's the way it went for years.
Did you ever endure, I mean, 60 homes, did you endure abuse in some of those places too?
So I never endured physical abuse in foster homes, but it was things that were different. So remember, the world is different now than it was when I grew up in care in the 80s. So my first foster home, I won't forget. So, trauma can cause the body to do different things, right? So when I was in my first foster home, I started peeing the bed. And instead of being met with compassion and care, the foster parents met me with, oh, you're a bad kid, go stand in the corner. And I remember standing in the corner so long that my legs would give out and I would be sitting on the floor begging to get out of the corner. And the answer was always no. But I can briefly remember having a conversation with my social worker in his car about this place and how they treated me. And I was gun booted out of there pretty quick.
So he realized they were not the right fit.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
incapable.
Yes.
Wow. So I guess, why did you want to speak with me? Like what part of your journey do you find important and that you wanted to share?
I'm huge on, and Sandy knows this, I'm huge on trying to inspire kids and social workers to do things differently. There's a lot of kids in the system. I think just in Alberta alone, there's over 8,000 kids in the system today. And, a lot of the kids that I work with today feel lost, broken. They feel alone. They don't think life is ever going to get any better. But, I'm constantly telling my story to try to teach kids that life can be better. And, I explain different parts of my story to like social workers and professionals to try to get them to do things a little bit differently. Have more compassion with kids, be patient. Yeah. It was, I was in care for 14 years and it wasn't pretty. I was, that kids could sense that I was different, you know? And when you're a kid in care like me and you're in a foster home, you're going to school, you don't dare tell anybody you're in a foster home because that's putting a target on your back. So that was a complete secret. And then from I was in grade 4, I'd say 4 to 7, I was severely bullied in school because kids found out I was in a foster home. And just to give you one example, I went to school with a bunch of hockey players at the time, and they thought it was a good idea to pull my shirt over my head like I was in a hockey fight, and they just beat me senseless. And even though I didn't fight back, I didn't instigate it, I didn't do anything, I got suspended. Because that's school policy. Anybody involved in the incident gets suspended. So, and that was my first instance of seeing that the system always doesn't work out in your favor all the time. Yeah.
Was there any sexual abuse ever that you can remember?
Not that I can remember. No, I remember always rooting through my parents' stuff to find things to do. My dad was never at home. He worked back shift as a cleaner, and he would sleep all day. So I would almost never see him. And my mother I think she sat in the kitchen chain smoking all the time. So I remember going around the house trying to find things to do. And I found my mom's dildo one time, and she said it was a massager and actually let me play with it around the house. So I suppose you could consider that a sort of sexual abuse, I guess.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess it's fucked up. Whatever the label is, it's fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you still do you have a relationship with your parents? Still?
Not really. My mom died a few years ago and I don't talk to my dad anymore. We had a falling out years and years ago. So after between grade 4 and 7, where I was severely bullied, I ended up moving to a foster home in the middle of nowhere. That was, an hour and a half away drive out into the countryside. And I remember driving to this place and I realized that I'm going to this place where I'm going to know nobody so I could reinvent myself. This was my opportunity. So I did. I became the class clown. I started doing drugs, drinking alcohol. And, as I think about how life played out over the years, I did it for what we would call in this field attachment. You need attachment to other people to thrive in society and thrive in your own life. And that I did everything to build connections and attachment to everybody. And I would just do whatever it took. It didn't matter.
Moving around so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any childhood friends still? Or was there anyone amongst the 60 moves that really stuck with you? And
one friend that I met when I was 15 who is he's like my brother. And he actually lives out here in Alberta. So I see him often.
Nice.
Yeah.
And did he come from a stable home? I was going to say normal, but there's no such thing.
True story. He came from a semi-stable home. His parents were together. I don't think he was abused or anything like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you found, these little pillars of light amongst all the darkness once in a while.
Well, there's a lot of darkness.
Yeah, I can imagine. Oh, I guess. Oh, well, actually, your brother. Are you close with the brother at all anymore?
We were for a period when I was in my late teenage years, but we had falling out a few years ago. He eventually developed schizophrenia. And
had. Okay, gotcha.
So I was contacted by one of the doctors at one of the local hospitals, I think 3 or 4 years ago. So he had a psychotic break. He was in the hospital. They wanted to give him medication, and he just flat out refused. They were looking for me to become power of attorney to give him medication. And so after a long chat with the doctor, I agreed. I knew what all of his symptoms were. I had talked to him on the phone. I knew something was it was crazy. And he was actually in an assessment facility for 30 days while I kept him on medication. But after he discharged, he never spoke to me ever again. Yeah.
So you don't know where he is or what's happening?
No idea.
Oh, man. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to have dark times and be surrounded by support and loved ones. It's another thing to have dark times and you must be hyper independent.
Yes, I am. Yeah. I've been pretty much living on my own since I was 15.
But you don't count on anyone else for help or anything.
Nope.
You don't.
Nope.
Are you married or anything?
Yeah, I have a wife, kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were able to, I guess, heal enough, or the dark times didn't affect you enough to the point that you had no trust of any other humans ever.
No, I'm there. I don't really trust anybody at all, no matter who you are.
Not even your wife?
I trust my wife. We've been together for 15 years, 14 years, somewhere around there. And yeah, I trust my wife. But besides that, it's everybody else has an ulterior motive for something. You know what I mean? I moved to that area of foster care in the middle of nowhere. I was in 3 different foster homes just in that one little area. In I think a 1.5 2 year span. I had met this guy. I was going to school with him. And we became good friends. We had similar interests. We both like wrestling.
Who didn't?
I know.
back then.
So, I mean, we became good friends. And then I remember he called me super early in the morning one morning. It was like 6 a.m. And he said, "This is emergency. I got questions for you." He said, "Is your dad's name such and such?" And it was. And I was like, "How did you know that? I didn't tell anybody." And he said, "Well, is he married to somebody named such and such? And do they have 2 kids named, you know?" And I was like, "Where are you getting this information?" He said, "Well, I think I'm your brother." And he immediately got his mom to drive to my house, and he showed me these letters that were written to him through an adoptions agency. And as soon as I seen the letters, I knew it was my dad's writing. So I guess before I was born, my dad had a girlfriend who got pregnant, had a baby. They knew they couldn't take care of the kid. They put the baby up for adoption, and that was this kid that I had been going to school with, like no joke.
Why were you sitting on this for so long? We've been talking for 20 minutes.
Well, I'm trying to go in chronological order, right? Throughout my life. No, I know.
Fucking crazy.
That's wild, eh?
So this good friend of yours happened to be your brother.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
half brother.
Half brother. Yep. Same fathers, different mothers.
So is he still in your life?
I'll give you another twist.
Yes.
It was at a time where I started doing things that I shouldn't. I broke into a trailer, started stealing some stuff. Literally, it was in the middle of a blizzard. I was 14. There was snow everywhere, and I got caught by a guy driving down the street in a blizzard on a pedal bike. That karma. But yeah, so I got caught, and I had to go through restorative justice, and I had this restorative justice worker. My restorative justice worker was actually this brother's mom when she showed up to my house.
What's the population of Nova Scotia?
Not too sure.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's not.
Maybe 1 million? A little over, maybe? Yep.
So it's one of those places where I guess there could be those connections because it's so small.
Yeah.
But still, that's bananas.
Yeah. Yep. And then...
Are you still in talk to that brother? No. Oh, another falling out?
Actually caught this one online making fun of George Floyd after he died. And I was like, "Man, what are you doing? Like, you're better than this." And he was just, that's what he chose to do. And I don't accept negativity in my life. Like, I just don't. I'm here to help people. And anybody that just wants to bring that hate into my area, my orbit, it's a no-fly zone. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, sorry about that as well. But
part of life.
Another person that's been in your life forever is your school teacher,
Sandy.
When did you meet Sandy? And
I didn't meet Sandy.
What is it about her that you are still connected with her?
We'll get to Sandy later.
Okay.
I hold Sandy close, and she knows it.
Right.
I ended up moving back to the city, and then I started living in group care.
What'd you think of that? Did you prefer that over foster?
Yes and no. I mean, group care, you're in like either a home or a facility. 8 to 12 kids, strict rules, strict expectations. Some places had staff members that didn't give a shit about you, sat in the office, played on their phone, played on the computer, don't engage with kids. So I started to be, a rebel. I ran away all the time. We in this field, we call it AWOLing, the military term, right? But I ran away all the time. I ended up meeting some people in this area north of Halifax and just partied all the time, drank, did drugs, got involved with crime and such. And yeah, that's just the way my life went for years. After you spend so much time in care and you move so much, you get to know other kids in other group homes. And after I don't know what you want to call it, do your stint for so long, you become the head of the pack. And, I eventually became the head of the pack. And whenever I would AWOL, I would take every other kid in the program with me. They would come with me. I remember one time I lived in this program with 8 kids. Everybody AWOL'd with me. I walked across the city to a facility with 12 kids in it, and everybody from that facility came too.
God, like the Pied Piper.
We were just running the streets of Halifax all the time. Yeah.
Like so I grew up in a really small town in Saskatchewan called Indian Head, and we had something that was called the Orange Benevolent Society, and it was a group home. And so like all through my parents worked there, so all through my life growing up, there was always these kids from this group home that went to school with us in this small country school. And man, I'm not gonna lie, it was cool having that in our town. Like you got to meet so many people, but then you kind of learned empathy, because sometimes someone would just, after like 6 months, just be gone and never come back. And then you find out, it was like their dad went to jail and their grandma took them, or like it was just all these crazy stories. But I don't know where I'm going with this. Shit. I do that all the time. Anyway.
It's good.
Anyway, so when you were partying, when you were going AWOL and stuff, was it that like the dopamine hit? Was that what did you think you were happy? Did you think it was like bringing you joy doing the stuff, or was it just you were bored?
I thought it was.
Right.
I mean, it's a mixture of things. You grow up in care and you don't really have stable life, stable parents, nobody to really give a shit about you and care for you. And then you have some group home staff that doesn't care either. Kids just want connection and attachment with people, and positive connection and attachment. Catch 22 is, if you go so long without positive connection and attachment, you'll just seek it anywhere. Bad connection is better than no connection. And that's what I did. I started hanging out with these people that were absolutely no good for me, but having that connection of people that somewhat want to be around you is better than having group home staff that didn't want to be around you. You know what I mean? I had gone through so many foster homes and so many group care homes where, I'll be the first to admit I wasn't an easy kid because of all the trauma and bullying and abuse that I went through. Dude, I was angry. I was angry at the world. I physically hurt people and I lashed out all the time, and I wasn't a nice kid. And because of that, staff didn't want to be around me. So while I understand, right, there's always two sides of the coin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Did you ever see any counseling or therapists or anything like that?
I remember seeing a therapist a few times when I was like 12 years old. He was an anger management therapist. And I remember his office. I remember him, super nice guy. But I was just in a place where I didn't think there was anything wrong with me. I didn't think I needed help. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to be told how to live my life, right?
No, you might be jumping ahead, but I'm curious if you've ever been diagnosed, like with nature versus nurture. You have a mother with schizophrenia, abuse. Were you ever like, this seems like a feeding ground for like personality disorders and things. Like, were you ever diagnosed with anything other than maybe substance abuse?
I am diagnosed with depression, ADHD, PTSD, and anxiety.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
no cluster Bs or nothing like that.
Nope. So when I wake up in the morning and my depression says, you're not getting out of bed today, my ADHD says, the fuck you are, get up. So I don't have a choice.
We sound very similar, you and I.
Yeah.
My son,
yeah,
just before we got on this call, came home and he's being assessed. Came home, he said, I've just been given Concerta.
Yeah.
So it's a thing in my house too. ADHD, depression, anxiety, substance abuse, maybe not the PTSD part as much. I mean, everybody has some kind of PTSD from some kind of trauma in their life, but that's shaped them. But yeah. Yeah. But anyway,
yeah.
But I'm not saying that. I'm not downplaying your PTSD.
No, of course. No, I understand. I get it. Yeah. But then, living in group care, one of the worst feelings about living in group care is being stuck there with nobody at Christmas time. Like, it is
You wouldn't go home
One
for
of the
Christmas?
worst feelings in the world. What?
They wouldn't let you go home for Christmas, or your parents just wouldn't want you home for Christmas?
So by the time I started living in group care, I actually became a ward of the court. So that basically means your parents give up your rights to you and the government is now your parents. Yeah. So it's called something different all over Canada. It's called the ward of the court back in Nova Scotia. It's called permanent guardianship order here in Alberta. So just lovely, delightful names. Something everybody wants to be called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God. And your brother's at home?
No, he was in care at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, he had started going into foster care. But the thing about, like, I eventually aged at a group care because I had burned bridges at every group home. My social worker eventually said, just get a place of your own and we'll pay for it. But their budget was so small that the only place I could find was a room in a rooming house where everybody did meth and crack. But I didn't know that at the time. I found that out later after I moved in and my social worker had signed the lease. Like, he took me to see the place and was like, oh yeah, this place is fine. You can live here. And then after I get in there, I'm like, what the hell? Yeah, I think there were 8 rooms in the house and everybody did hard drugs but me.
Did you start?
No.
Damn.
No.
Good on you.
No. And, I lived there for like 3 years. So I ended up meeting everybody else in the house. And I'm telling you, I had some awesome conversations with some of those people. Some of the most memorable conversations just about life and philosophy. And these guys just were dealt a shitty hand, right?
I was in addiction treatment for a month.
Yeah.
So I had like 20 roommates and group therapy and stuff. It was freaking fascinating.
Yeah.
And yeah, amazing people.
Yep. And then I was 13 or 14 when I tried to kill myself. And I was locked up in the psych ward. Yeah, that was interesting. But the thing about me was I was super street smart. So I knew to get out of the psych ward, I just tell them everything they want to hear. So I told them, the doctors, I made a mistake. I'm not going to hurt myself. I'll be fine. We'll make a plan. Just let me out and everything will be okay. And I played that off for a week. And then they let me out and I went on my way and went back to doing everything the same all over again.
When you did leave the psych ward, were you no longer suicidal?
No, I still
you just wanted the hell out of there.
I just wanted the hell out of there. It was literally, I think it was the second or third floor of the children's hospital and everything is just pale white and it looks like a hospital and it's just not an inviting environment, right?
Been there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not inviting at all.
Hmm.
So when you left the hospital, were you in foster care at that time?
I was still in group care. Yeah, I was in group care. But then, like I said, I ended up living in this rooming house. I think I quit school first day of grade 10 because I got into a fight with some kid and I couldn't manage my anger anymore. I was a fighter. I was a street kid. And yeah, I got into a fight first day of grade 10 and I just never went back. My social worker paid my rent. He bought my groceries, paid all my bills for me. So I just kind of did my own thing. And I mean, social workers are so overworked and underpaid. I almost never seen them, right? Yeah. And then I aged out when I was 19 with a letter in the mail stating that here's your birth date. You're not doing anything productive. You're done in our care, basically. And that was it. I was on my own with no life skills development. I didn't know how to conduct myself in society. I was angry, pissed off.
Is that when you met Sandy? Was after you aged out?
No, I met Sandy when I was like 27. So I went downhill after I aged out of care. I became an alcoholic. I was a bar star. I was at the club every day. And literally I spent the better part of 9 years going from, job to job to job to job. Man, geez, what did I do? I worked at McDonald's. I was a security guard at 6 different companies. I was undercover security. I was a floor walker, worked at Burger King, worked at Zeller's restaurant.
Do you have those drink machines that like you could see it flowing all the time?
Yeah. I remember I got the job at Zeller's restaurant. I was a waiter for a day. And for one day, they tried to show me how to go to each table and memorize all these orders and then go back. And I was like, this is not for me. And it's like every job that I did, I was trying to find something I enjoyed. Like I was a bouncer at an after hours nightclub in Halifax. I remember I was a floor walker, which is like undercover security for a drugstore. And it was close to Christmas time. And I was working with a partner, and it was in the busiest street in the city. And I remember we were working a night shift, and somebody had came in and stole a Toblerone bar. So as per, our policy and stuff, you wait till the guy leaves. So we follow him out, and we're like, sir, security, you got to come with us. And he had his back to us and his hands in his pockets. And he turned around and he pulled out this knife. And my partner, like when somebody does that, you're just supposed to let them go call the cops, whatever. No, my partner thought he was Bruce Lee and jumped up and did this spinning kicked the guy to the ground. The guy fell down, reached back in his pocket, and I was like, oh my God, what's next? And he pulled out this needle, and I grabbed my partner. I'm like, went in, called the cops. Cops got him. In fact, the needle had HIV positive. Yep. Yeah. So I spent,
job.
Yeah. I went from job to job to job for years. I had a couple kids, a couple daughters in the process. My first real job was with this telemarketing agency, I guess this call center, and they dealt with cell phone users in the United States. And because I love tech, I excelled at this job. I became a resolution specialist, which is what they called me. So when somebody called in, talked to a rep, didn't like what the rep had to say and asked to speak to a supervisor, they got me. So I had my first kid while working here.
With your wife?
No, not with my wife.
Okay.
No, but it was crazy because, I dated this lady for a short period of time, and I had severe trust issues. And I knew I didn't think I could trust her, so I broke it off. And then it was Valentine's Day. She texted me and she said, can I pop in for a minute? And I said, sure. So she came over. Actually, I have it right here. She gave me this Valentine's Day card. And in it says, to George, I wasn't sure how to say this, so congratulations, you're going to be a daddy. Yeah. But it was like, I wasn't ready to be a dad. I was still infused with so much trauma, but I didn't want to be like my father.
Mm-hmm.
I refused to be like him. So I remember I sat there stunned looking at the card for a minute, and then she kind of like nudged me and was like, are you going to say something? And I'm like, no, but I'm going to do something. And she kind of looked at me, and I walked to the kitchen, biggest tall glass of vodka I could, downed it. And I was like, okay, parenthood, here I come. But it was like I said, I still wasn't cognitively ready to be a parent. I didn't know anything about parenting. I wasn't even parented right.
Right. Yeah.
But I did what I could. I still continue to work odd jobs here and there and do all this stuff. I even came to Alberta at one point, worked in the oil sands running equipment. Then my boss in the oil sands was an alcoholic. He treated everybody like garbage, called people names. Like, the money was great, don't get me wrong, but the environment and the people are they're not good. So I remember I worked up there for a year and a half, 2 years, got laid off, went back to Nova Scotia, and you make more money on EI than you do with a full-time minimum wage job. So I just let EI run, played Call of Duty for 12 hours a day, every day. I sunk so bad into depression because I wanted better. I wanted more. And I had literally no idea what I wanted to do with life. And then I remember I was like 6 weeks away from my EI running out. And somebody said to me, EI will pay for you to go to school. And I was like, no, it's not. The government's not going to pay me anything to do anything. Sure enough, there was a program that the government paid for to put you in school. Pay for your books, pay for everything, and pay you $1,200 a month just to go to class.
That's still a thing?
I don't know. I haven't been back home in 16 years, but because I guess the way that they look at it is
thing, right?
But yes, so the way that they look at it is if they're going to put you through school, get a better job, you're going to get a better paying job, which means they can make their money back in tax revenue anyways, which totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, why not? But
yeah.
So I wanted to do this program. I had absolutely no idea what I would do ever. Like, I was never successful in school. I was the outcast. I was the shit disturber. That was it. So I remember just scouring colleges and universities and looking through different courses to try to figure out if I had one last shot, what would I do with it? And then I thought back to this time I was standing at the bus stop. I was talking to one of my old group home friends. And she said to me, George, if you ever got your mind right, I think you would be a great child and youth care worker. And I couldn't shake it. So I searched that in the college profiles under the courses, and I seen everything that it entailed. And I knew it was everything that staff was trained on when they were working with me when I was in group homes. And I was torn. I was like, I know it. I was the kid. Can I do the work? But then I was also like, what are people going to think of me? Am I cognitively ready to do this? Am I healed enough to help other people?
Right.
So I said, fuck it. And I made myself some rules. I said, if I'm going to do this, I will do whatever it takes for kids at all costs. I'll be completely honest and transparent with everything. And I will use my life as a tool to help others do better and succeed at all costs.
So you came up with those rules before you even went to school?
Yes. Yep. And I applied and I got accepted. I was terrified. Don't get it twisted. I was fucking terrified. I didn't know.
I'm always scared. That's how I live my life, is terrified.
See, I'm not scared of anything, but I was scared of this because I didn't know if I wanted to tell anybody why I was there. And I didn't know how people would react if I did. So I remember this is where I met Sandy. Sandy was my teacher. So I remember the first day, I'll never forget, going around the class, all of our desks were lined up around the back and sides of the class, and Sandy's, asking us about us and why we're there. Everybody's telling their story, and I'm sitting there quiet. I always sit in the back. I just pay attention. I read people's gestures, body movements, eye movements. I analyze the words that come out of their mouth. And then I try to discern and figure out what I'm going to say. And I sat there. It felt like an eternity. I debated what I was going to say. Because Sandy's questions were, why are you here? Why are you choosing to get in this field? And everybody has a story, right? We all live through something. And then Sandy got to me and I hesitated a little bit. And I looked at Sandy and I said, I grew up in care. I was apprehended when I was 5. I aged out when I was 19. I was in 60 placements and I was homeless. And she was like, what the hell, kid? I was like 26, 27 when I started school. And everybody just kind of looked at me and they're like, and you're here. I was like, yeah, I guess so. And Sandy was like, well, what do you want to do with it? And I said, well, I want to help kids that are in situations that I used to be in. And me and Sandy just immediately created this bond with each other. And she pushed me and she challenged me more than anybody ever has. But one thing that she did that nobody else in my life had ever done was giving me praise for my work. She said, constantly, you can do this. Humble yourself, focus on listening, taking in others' information. And she pushed me. But she praised me often for the work that I did. I had never received praise from anybody for doing anything good ever. I was the bad kid.
Hmm.
And it was a different feeling. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yep. I think it was halfway through school. I thought to myself, how epic would it be for a former kid in care to get a job at a group home they used to live at? So I started applying, and I had this one interview with this one small options group home agency that I used to be a resident in. And I remember sitting there in the interview, the old fellow who owned the company and one of the program supervisors. I forget what the question was, but I just flat out told them I used to live here. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah. And I told them what I was doing, and I got hired. And it was nice. It was a nice learning experience. Like, I worked there for, I think, a year and a half. But the supervisor was always, I don't know, it was weird. It's like she never wanted to talk to me about anything. As in time, I found out that some people actually thought that me growing up in care and now working in the field was wrong. It was wrong for me to do that.
Weird.
No, and I get that. I've asked that question. Well, why do you think it's wrong? And the only answer I get is, well, it's just not right. Or I got
perfect, actually.
Well, we know that now. And then
so I worked at the addiction place. I worked at the addiction place I was a client at for a couple of years, and almost everybody on staff is in recovery.
Yeah.
I mean, clients gravitate towards people that have life experience, not just the schooling. Anyway.
But yeah, I got a job at another big name youth agency that I think I lived in 4 or 5 of their homes for years off and on. And I was just gunning for this job. This was like the big one for me at the time. So I applied. Executive director calls me. So he was, when I was in care, he was the program supervisor. Now he's the executive director. He wanted to bring me in for a conversation. So I went in, we chatted for a little while. I went about my business. Then they called me for an interview. So I went in for an interview, and I'm interviewed by 2 ladies. And as we're going through the interview, I'm giving like school-like answers, talking about trauma and theory. And then they stopped me. And they said, George, we know you know the work. We don't want school answers. Give us who you are, reality. So I gave it to them. It was the first time I was ever asked that. Weird as hell. But then this one lady looked at me and she said, what do you think your coworkers would say if they found out you were a kid in care? And I said, I thought about it for a second. The question totally took me off guard. And I thought about it and I said, well, I would hope they would appreciate the life experience that I bring to the table. And she looked at me without missing a beat. And she said, well, I don't. I think it's wrong. She said that right in the interview. I was super offended. I could feel my face just turn beet red. I didn't know what I wanted to say. I was a mixture between offended and angry. And I said, well, I'm sorry. That's your opinion. And everyone is entitled to their opinion. And then I left. I got the job. I went in to sign the papers. And I looked at that question as a red flag. And I was like, something's weird here. And then I went in to sign the papers. And then found out it was part of my contract to donate. They would take it right off my paycheck, $20 per pay, to pay for this child and youth care website. And I was like, does everybody do this? And they were like, yeah, it's mandatory. And I was like, but this is everybody's hard-earned money. Like, this isn't optional? And they were like, nope. Happens right across the board. So there's red flag number 2. Red flag number 3 was they told me as I was signing my papers, I was barred from telling anybody I was a kid in care. Like, I wasn't allowed to say anything to anybody. Red flag number 3, but I wanted the job so bad. This was the big one. That at the time, the red flags didn't even click. I just wanted to sign the papers, become an employee, and say, as a kid in care, I did it. So I did. One of the first homes I worked in was a home I used to live in. This big, old, beautiful Victorian home. Every time I showed up to work, there was an elephant in the room. Nobody wanted to teach me. Nobody wanted to teach me anything, supervise me, show me the work. They knew where I came from, and they knew I used to live there. And it weirded everybody out. A couple weeks after I was hired at this organization, a friend of mine had sent me a link on my phone and said, I think you need to read this. This link took me to a child and youth care website where a thread was created by the executive director that hired me. And it was wondering everybody's opinion about hiring former youth in care because he had just did it. He was talking about me without saying my name. And the thread was, there was a lot of good comments. There was, but there were some off comments from people. One person said, well, is he healed enough to be able to do this work? Or is he going to use it to try to heal himself? As I went through time and I realized that I wasn't welcome at this agency, I quit. I had got a lot of experience under my belt at the time. I worked at some homeless shelters, some small options group homes. I knew the work. I just wanted somebody to give me a chance. Spend time with me, give me your knowledge, train me. So I came to Alberta. I worked 3 months as what's called a safe visitation coordinator. So I coordinated a program for families within domestic violence. But it was an office job. I sat in 4 walls, and I did that for 3 months, and then I didn't want to do it anymore. I wanted to physically work with kids. So I found this job at this treatment facility that when I read the ad, and it just seemed amazing. So I went for this interview. I got the interview. In the interview, I'll never forget, it's in this little old trailer with super thin walls. And as I'm sitting, there's an interview going on in there, and I can hear everything in the interview because the walls are so thin. And this lady that's in there is just spitting off her education left, right, and center. And I'm like, I got nothing on this lady. Like nothing. She's killing it. She's killing me. And I don't know what it was. It was my turn for the interview. And I sat there with the assistant executive director. We chatted for a few seconds before the interview began, and I stopped her. I don't know what in my head told me to tell her this. I said, listen, a job interview is basically a human selling themselves to you. And I said, I know I don't have all the experience in the world or all the education in the world, but I got some tricks up my sleeve. And she said, okay, let's see what you got. She started asking me questions about attachment and trauma and how I build relationships with kids. And I stopped her and I said, okay, this is where I'll pull out one of the tricks. And she said, well, what is it? And I said, well, I grew up in care, 14 years, 60 placements, homeless. And she looked at me and she said, and you made it. I said, I guess so. So the executive director was a little bit late coming to the interview. He came in and he sat down. She looked at him and she said, he's got something to tell you. So I told him about my time in care, and he kind of leaned back in a seat like this. He put his hand up. He's just staring at me. He's an older guy. He's analyzing me. And he said, you made it. And I said, yeah. Offered me a job on the spot. So I started working for this facility. And I remember there were some supervisors there that have been there for 15 years. I was still new to this, so I tried to mimic myself to these 2 guys. I did everything that they did. I acted like they did. Same rules, same expectations. And then the kids called me on it. Why are you trying to be like that guy? And I was doing a supervision one day with the assistant director, and I told her what I was doing. And she said the same thing. She said, why are you trying to be like other people? Why can't you just be yourself? And then something just clicked. And then I did things differently. And I went back down to the floor, and I took the good parts of everyone, made it my own, and just focused on building relationships with everybody. Kids, staff. I became a supervisor in 7 months, and I worked there for a long time, almost 8 years. I did a lot of good work with a lot of kids. A lot of kids, they age out of care now. They'll find me on Facebook. Message me, tell me, thank me for the work that I did.
Amazing.
I was a program supervisor for 2.5 years, and then I was arrested at work. Yep. So we had this kid. Pardon?
Do tell.
We had this kid. Because I was a kid in care, kids can't hide anything from me. Contraband, drugs. I find everything. I know all the hiding spots. They hate it. So this one kid was notorious for trying to bring back contraband, and I found it every single time. And he just hated it, and he hated me with passion. So he went AWOL.
I think I know where this is going.
He went AWOL with a friend. Lit up a lighter, super hot. Hurt his arm. Went to a social worker. Told him I did it. Took him right to the local RCMP without doing an investigation. They showed up while I was at work, put me in cuffs, and took me away. It sucked. I was at a place where I loved my job. My job was an extension of my home, and all the people that I worked with were an extension of my family. I went early and stayed late, thought nothing of it. It was something that a lot of people dream about. I didn't look at it as a job. And yeah.
Part of your identity.
It was. It was part of who I was. I was suspended from work for 6 weeks because of police investigation, kids in care. I get it. But it broke me. I knew that everything I had ever worked for could be over in the blink of an eye because of this one allegation from this kid. I cried all the time. I was angry. I was super pissed off. I couldn't sleep. I paced around my house wondering what was going to happen. I ended up taking a polygraph and I passed it.
Did your management support you and believe you before?
Yes. Everybody fully supported me, but they have to go by the book with what the law says. They have to cooperate with the investigation. Everybody did everything that they should have done. They supported me as much as they could. I get it. I took the polygraph, I passed it, but literally I was so distraught. I was so broken. I was cooked. I needed a break. I was done. We sold everything and we moved back to Nova Scotia. I was done. I was cooked. I became a gardener.
At this point?
Pardon?
You were married at this point?
Oh.
Okay, gotcha.
She's my wife. Same thing.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, I became a gardener for like 6 weeks. And then the executive director personally called me on my phone and said, the kid recanted. So I guess what happened was after I passed the polygraph, police brought the kid in and said, okay, if you say George did this, why did he pass the polygraph? And the kid finally admitted to making up the story to try to get me in trouble. So I was like, okay. I stayed out there for a few more weeks. I couldn't find a job. We were severely running out of money. And I remember my youngest daughter at the time was super young. She needed milk. And in order for me to go buy her milk, I literally had to go into her piggy bank and take out money to go buy her milk. And I remember going to the store and feeling absolutely ashamed to do that. And I had a jug of milk. I walked in the house. I looked at my wife and I said, we're not doing this anymore. We got to go back. And then, so we ended up coming back to Alberta. And I remember because when I went in my house and I said that to my wife, I kind of said it in a tone and I didn't mean to. So I remember saying to my wife, I'm so sorry, but I was just tired. I was embarrassed. And she was like, you know what? I'm actually happy you did that because I wanted to come back. So I came back, went back to work for the facility. Nothing was ever the same, ever. I was angry, panic attacks all the time. So I remember when my wife and I first got together, she told me about her struggles with anxiety. I didn't understand it. I was one of the people who said, well, can't you just forget about it? I was the guy who had been designed by society to push my emotions down and just keep going. That's what you're supposed to do as a man in today's society. Men aren't supposed to have emotions. Mm-hmm. But I was broken. Panic attacks all the time, anxiety attacks all the time. I took 3 different leaves and failed, trying to fix my mind. And then my doctor eventually wrote me out and said, you're never going back there. And that I was broken again. That was still a place that I loved, even though I wasn't the same anymore. But I was broken. My anxiety, that's when I was diagnosed with anxiety and PTSD. And I started to open up more about my life and things that I had gone through. Because when I moved out here, after how I was treated back home, I might tell somebody here and there that I was a kid in care, but I left it to that. I didn't talk about my experiences. I didn't tell anybody anything. I just bottlenecked all of it. So then in order to figure out my anxiety, I had to go to therapy. And I did therapy once a week for a year and a half. And then I left the workplace 2 weeks before COVID. And then my daughter ended up staying home because the kids did homeschooling anyways. So I just worked on myself. Therapy, EMDR. I started opening up more. Literally, my therapist took me through my entire life, my whole childhood, through EMDR. And everything that I went through, we banged it out, all of it. And I remember, what was it? It was like June 2021. The kids had started going back to school, and the governments had announced that next year everybody was going to be in full swing. I looked at my daughter. I'm like, kiddo, you're going back to school because dad's got to go back to work. I was stuck in my apartment for 14 months. We didn't do anything. My daughter has type 1 diabetes. I have Crohn's. So we're both compromised immune system. So we just stayed home. Didn't do anything. But when I decided to go back to work, I was like, okay, maybe I'll go work in the sports department at Canadian Tire. Because I didn't think I'd ever be in this field ever again. Therapy continued. And then I decided to get back into the field. And I became a program supervisor at this agency in 4 walls again. But it was with a different agency that was giving me opportunities to think outside of the box. I had a team that I supervised. We would do frequent supervisions. I always strive to build relationships with people and bounce ideas off people. And it went super good. And then I had this training a couple years ago. It was for this type of practice they do in children's services. And part of the training was about something called words and pictures. And what words and pictures is a part of a lot of CFS practice now. So caseworkers work with parents to build their children a child-friendly language book to tell them about why they were in care. Gives them some closure, helps them understand in child-friendly language. I broke. I lost it. I'm in the middle of this ballroom sobbing in front of my boss. And he's like, what's wrong? I said, man, I don't even know my story. Trauma had built so many walls. I didn't know anything. So I remember that was a Thursday. He said, take Friday off. You got the weekend off. Get your mind right. Figure it out. I process things differently because of everything that I've been through. And I got to do it my way or it's not going to work. Did you ever see the show Dr. House?
I know the show. I've never seen it, but yeah.
So Dr. House he'll use a whiteboard to map out his thoughts, and he'll sit there with balls and throw them at the ceiling for hours upon hours. That's the type of stuff that I do to try to wrap my head around different situations. And I said, I don't know my story, but I can make it. I think I put it away. I have my children's services file here with me.
Your own file. My
own file. So when I was in school with Sandy, she taught me that I could request it. And I immediately did it. And never looked at it, ever. It's about this thick. Never looked at it. But because I wanted to know my story and try to figure out missing pieces, I brought out my file. I bought a $50 journaling app and inputted every piece of my file in chronological order.
It's like
there it was.
Scrapbooking.
Yeah, shitty scrapbooking, but by the time I was done...
Trauma scrapbooking.
Yeah, that's basically it. There's all your trauma. But by the time I was done, there was the beginning of a story.
How much did you learn going through that? Like, was there stuff that you're like, holy shit, I forgot about this, or I don't remember this at all, or... there was a lot that I don't remember. But after I was done, because it's that thick, I went through it. I realized a couple things. There's a lot missing from my file. There's a lot of redacted stuff, blacked out information. When it comes to, because they'll black out like any name that's not mine, they're blacking it out. Any situation that could identify someone else, they'll black it out too. So there was a lot of that.
a lot of missing pages. When kids in care like run away or do drugs or get caught with contraband, you write critical incident forms and send them to the government. There was one in mine, and I knew there should have been hundreds and hundreds. There was some mixed up dates, but when I was done, I realized that there was a theme in my file. And that theme was caseworkers telling foster parents and group home workers, George needs a heavy hand. George needs routines. George needs structure. George needs consequences. And that's it. So when I was all done, I thought about it. And I was like, well, none of that worked. Is that what I really needed? Or did I need something else? And then I processed everything. And I said, I didn't need any of that. I needed a hug. Nobody ever hugged me. Told me that my anger was okay. Taught me different ways to express it. Validated my emotions. It was just wrong for me to do everything that I was doing. And I had group home staff that were uninterested because I was a bad kid. Yeah.
So I'm assuming you then took that and have applied it to your own professional.
I did. The kids are my everything. I give them little tidbits here and there sometimes when I'm chatting with a kid who's like just broken. These kids are broken. Some of these kids have gone through things I could never imagine. Like ever in my life. And sometimes when I'm chatting with kids and they feel alone and broken, I'll give them little tidbits. And I might tell them that I grew up in care in hopes to try to give them just a little bit of hope that things will eventually might get a little bit better.
Or that it's possible anyway.
Yes. And like in my practice, I build everything, like I said, off relationships and having fun with the kids. I'm the funny guy. Now, I said to Sandy years and years ago, I had hundreds of staff work with me. I remember 4. And I remember all the specific things that those 4 staff did that made such a big impact. They listened to me. They were patient. They spent time with me. They used humor. And I took it all and made it mine. And I know some of these kids, like I go to work every day and I tell the staff that I work with, I'm like, these kids come from dark places. In the midst of us teaching them, we also need to have fun with them. Give them memories that will last a lifetime. Because some of them don't have any good memories at all. So I'm the guy that'll show up sometimes with like 10 apple pies and be like, kids, we're having a pie eating contest right now. Nothing planned, just spontaneous. I remember taking a bunch of kids, driving 3.5 hours to the Calgary Zoo with myself and the staff. Long day, drive to the Calgary Zoo, have fun the whole day, drive back. But I did it for the kids. Yep.
Have you been challenged on the way you work now? Or have people kind of, society and like the education that, what am I trying to say? Like, it's not old school anymore. Like, people are starting to come around and be like,
yes.
Yeah.
So I find now people are more interested to hire people with life experience. It's like out there more. The only thing that I really struggle with, I've never had somebody really challenge my practice, but the only thing that I struggle with is I know the work. Like I read, I'm currently going to school to finish, like I went to school with Sandy. I got my diploma, but now I'm back in school as a part-time student to try to finish off my degree in child and youth care. The one thing that I struggle with is the educated language. Like, I'm a hood system kid. I'm not educated. So when I'm reading textbooks and stuff, I struggle with the professional language. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, I do.
But I know the work.
Yeah.
And I do it on a daily basis.
So another thing, are you worried about another kid? Because you do have you hold their relationships very close to you.
Yeah, I do.
Are you worried another kid could break you because of a accusation or something? I mean, it's
No.
When I worked in addictions, there was times where I was like, I'm pretty vulnerable to be destroyed here by someone if I let them.
Yep. No. If it happens, it happens. I'm at a place now where like I still see my therapist all the time. I love her. She's fantastic. I'll be in therapy till I'm dead and gone. And one thing that I've learned throughout my mental health journey was don't worry about things you can't control. Ever. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of space. It's a waste of brain power.
Do you know the
So if I
Serenity
can't
prayer?
control it,
Do you know the Serenity prayer?
no.
The AA thing? God
No.
grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
I've heard this. Yep.
Yeah. It was so, first time I heard that, I wasn't even in AA. I heard that. I was like, oh, that's
Yeah.
fucking good.
Yeah. 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 So yeah, I spoke at this. I was invited to speak at this big, huge child and youth care conference last year, which I did. That was super nerve wracking. Spoke in front of a room filled of 70 people, but they loved it. They absolutely loved it. What I did was I kind of combined it. I made this huge PowerPoint of my life story, but with pieces of things that I've learned in life and stuff that Sandy had taught me and that I've learned in other places to teach people about what kids in care actually go through in their mind and different ways of engaging them and teaching them things. People just loved it.
Awesome.
And then I love writing. So I took my journal and I turned it into a book and I published it.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's it called?
From Broken to Born Again. I'll show you. Shameless plug.
It is shameless.
From Broken to Born Again, the George Dean story. It's on Amazon only because it was free. I'm like a broke-ass student.
Right. From Broken to Born Again.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I have a self-published book as well, but it's a kid's book.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Sometimes Daddy cries.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
I see. I'm on social media and I still see so many comments from people today that say, oh, men aren't supposed to cry. You're supposed to suppress your emotions and just keep going.
Yeah. And men our age, we're like maybe the biggest demographic for suicide.
80% of the world's suicides is percent.
And a big chunk of that 80% is like our age.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And if you break down into that, you'll see that, you could probably break the statistics apart and see that people suppress their emotions, don't talk to anybody, and keep everything locked away.
Shame.
Yeah.
So normally I try to keep the episodes around an hour. So I may be cutting some stuff and whatever, but
yeah,
just to warn you.
Yeah.
But also, was there anything you didn't say that you wanted to make sure was said before I hit stop?
When I read my file, there was a piece of paper in it. It was a referral to a respite agency. So basically what it was foster parents were tired of me and they needed me to go to another home because they needed a break. So it was a referral to the respite part of Children and Family Services. You fill out all my information on it, send it in. There was one section that it requested the social worker write in a little bit of family history. So they could have wrote a paragraph about, me and my family and what has happened with us, but they didn't do that. They wrote one word. Wow, that's it.
So what'd you take from that?
Not very professional. You could tell that I was being judged. My family was judged. Right? So when I tell my story to people, I do it in 2 parts. Well, 3 really. I want to teach kids that life can be better. I like to teach social workers better ways to do things. Don't judge the people that you work with. Give them a chance and be patient. And then I also try to inspire everyone because a lot of people that I grew up with, they're not here anymore.
Be sure to subscribe and to like this video. You can listen on Apple Podcast and Spotify. This is Todd Rennebaum saying, make your beds and take your meds. Keep watching for more interviews with incredible people telling their stories of resilience and adversity with mental health and mental illness.